And we can get a bit of quiet when we make start. This is the first Committee of Children, Education, Libraries and Safeguarding. I'd like to particularly welcome the members of the public, and I know we have a number of guests from outside who are coming in this evening to speak and to answer some questions. On a procedural note, before we start off, the first item is with regard to absent members. At the moment we've had, if we can have a little more quiet, it will help. I know for some it's a bit challenging, but if we can, that would be greatly appreciated. Absence of members, I think they're done reported in. So the second item is declarations of members, disclosure of pecuniary interests and non-pecuniary interests. Do any members have any interests they wish to declare? Okay.
Sorry. I'm a trustee at Barnet Borough Council. It's all right, I did declare it, but I just wanted to double check.
Yes. Thank you for that. Now, just before we move on to public questions and comments, there's one final procedural point. I know we've got a lot of work to do in terms of some of the other committees on the council constitutionally. One of the ways in which that affects this committee is that there are members of this committee who are not elected members, but who are members of this committee who can vote on educational items, so those co-opted members. And I think it's worth pointing out at the start of this meeting, just to clarify, that those members who are co-opted onto this committee but not elected members are eligible to vote on any item that is primarily, almost exclusively related to education. And there are a couple of them this evening. Obviously you have an opportunity to make much more contributions to this vote. That's one of the main reasons why we greatly appreciate you having me here. But item 4B, the second members item, is one that you will be able to vote on, and the other one is item 7, which is the education strategy overview and panel recommendation strategy. So those are the two you can vote on, and you of course will welcome your comments on all the other items. So just before we move on to the questions and comments from the public, I did want to add a verbal response to one of these questions, because I know that there have been a number of family members and contributors to the UPS Foundation, the Oakleigh Opportunities for Play scheme, and it's been very helpful, I think, that we've got the members item on this, although the members item I think seems to refer that it relates to the Oakleigh Play scheme, which of course it's not. It's a parents organised play scheme which does some truly fantastic work within this local authority, but really it's commissioned in a different way than other short break service providers are. Instead of being through a contract, it's actually through direct grants to parents. The parents have actually done some great work in being able to put this organisation together. And so, in light of that, and looking at the way that is very different from those short break service providers that are contracted by the council, who have had plenty of time to be able to look at the changes that are in place. In the case of books, actually, I can understand why they would not have had the same understanding of changes in funding that would take place, and as a result of that, with plans in place where there was an expectation that the break would have run during the summer, to have that suddenly be removed at this stage, I can see would actually be against the spirit of what we're trying to achieve in the process of doing this. So I'm going to propose a motion for this committee that Children, Education, Libraries and Safeguarding Committee request the Director of Children's Services, under their delegated powers under the Council's financial regulations, to underwrite the Council's funding to books for the provision of some play scheme to the value of the Council's funding from 13-14, which was £21,000. I'm going to move that motion, and I'll call for a seconder. Seconded. Thank you, Councillor Thomas. All those in favour? That's a clear majority. That looks like it's unanimous, so that's carried. Thank you. I'd like to now invite the questioners to have an opportunity to ask questions. Questions first. Is the leading person here this evening? The leading person has an opportunity to ask a supplementary question. Is she here? Not here. So I'll move on to the second question that was Nadia Gurney Randall. If Ms. Gurney Randall is here and wants a supplementary question, is Gurney Randall here? No. The third item is one raised by Mrs. Beverly Cohen. Is Mr. Cohen here this evening? No, Mr. Cohen here this evening. The fourth question was from James Gordon. Is James Gordon here this evening? Would you like to ask a supplementary?
I don't know because I've got my hands full here, but
you don't need to.
It's written down, isn't it? So.
Yep. Okay, thank you. And then finally, Ms. Sackman is here this evening. Would you like to ask a supplementary question?
I was going to make some comments later on
We've got
in relation to that.
you're on the list of comments,
Yes.
so reserve them for comments. Super. So in that case, I'll just remind speakers, we have 4 public speakers this evening, and I believe that it's been agreed with the speakers the order they would speak. Each speaker will have a time period for up to 3 minutes to address the committee, and I'm sure Mr Frost will give a notice when there's 1 minute left to make sure people don't then run out of time due to poor planning. So I will invite first of all Ms Sackman, if you'd like to come, we will look forward to hearing your 3 minutes. When you're ready.
Thank you, Mr Chair, and the committee as well for allowing me to say a few words here this evening. I'm here speaking on behalf of the parents of Oakleigh School who attended the scheme, but also have been receiving representations and comments from other parents of disabled children across our community in Barnet who attend a range of play schools and who approached me to speak on their behalf in the wake of the cuts to short breaks, both to the contracts of short breaks, but also to short breaks provision in so far as it's paid for on an individually commissioned basis. So whilst I'm here primarily on behalf of Oakleigh parents, I also speak on behalf of parents of schemes like Camp Kef, of schemes like Resources for Autism, which does have a short breaks contract. Let me begin by saying that I welcome the resolution this committee has just passed. This is excellent news for the parents and the families, in particular children, who attend BOOs. So let me have it on record that we welcome this. But let me also say that it is unfortunate that it has come to this, that it has taken concerted effort, hours and hours of the parents' time, of the staff's time, of families who are, in any event, under strain, to be here at this meeting tonight, to organise themselves, to write repeatedly to the council, to the council leader, to this committee, to officers, in order to get this answer. It shouldn't have taken that. I'm glad that this committee has passed the resolution that it had. But these are parents who have to fight for every bit of funding, for every bit of support for their children. And it shouldn't be that way. As a council and as a community, we should be there to support this group of parents and these children. And unfortunately, that hasn't always been the case. The fact that short breaks contracts were cut for the likes of Resources for Autism is still leaving those sorts of organisations, we're talking about contracts now, those organisations are still hurting as a result of those cuts. And these are organisations which actively raise charitable funds, but plugging the gap that short breaks cuts will leave is a very real challenge. So whilst the short-term solutions that have been found for Maple Down School and now for the scheme are welcome, this council collectively has to do better next time when it comes to commissioning short breaks contracts and also dealing, if it chooses to do so, with individual applications by parents. Because this has caused a huge amount of distress, and I've seen it firsthand working with these parents, and we must do better. So let me say three asks going forward. We met the first one of those, which was to put back the money for this summer. As I said, we welcome that. Can I just put the last point in?
Second, I will invite members to ask questions, and they may well want to ask a question about what you're going to ask over the next 15 minutes. Members, if you have any questions for the second, while she's here. Councillor Hutton. That's Councillor Hutton.
I just wanted to ask, perhaps you could just elucidate what you were going to say. I realise we're out of time, but perhaps you could just tell us a couple of points.
Certainly, thank you, Councillor Hutton. There is a bigger picture to this. It was just 2 points, really. Firstly, there is a national picture to this. We know that the government has actually increased shorter breaks funding because it recognises its importance both for the children that it provides for and in terms of the respite, the very real respite that it provides for the parents who perform an amazing, amazing role as the carers for these children. That money at a national level has actually been increased, but it's not ring-fenced. And at the local level, the coalface, we're seeing very, very painful cuts to these organisations. All of us in this room recognise that there's not a bottomless pit of money in local government. We understand that local government is having to make difficult choices of its own. But let me get on record on behalf of all these parents that amongst those difficult choices, protecting the most vulnerable people in our society, amongst them disabled children, is the least that we could do. That's the national picture. The second point is the local picture. As I said, the way in which this has been dealt with, both in terms of the individually commissioned breaks and in terms of the short-term contract, has not been good enough. And I urge this committee to look seriously amongst yourselves how this can be done better next time to avoid the lack of consultation and the distress that it has caused the parents behind.
Thank you, Ms. Second. I didn't see any other members indicating desire to ask questions. No officers wish to have any comments. Thank you very much, Ms. Second.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Mr. White, Mark White, who was here this evening. Mr. White here. And so I'm sure you heard before, Mr. White, but just to remind you, you've got 3 minutes, you'll get notice when you get to 2 minutes, and then members will have an opportunity to ask you further questions afterwards.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Committee members. I would like to echo Sarah's comments. We obviously welcome the resolution that we passed unanimously. Thank you for that. However, the Oakleigh scheme needs guaranteed long-term funding. It provides care for the most vulnerable and disadvantaged children in the country, without exception. Like Mapletown, the Oakleigh children, the Acorn children, are almost impossible to manage. Almost impossible. Books provides the only opportunity for families with sufficiently skilled staff, sufficiently dedicated staff, who know our children, and just as importantly, who our children know. They operate in an environment which is safe, which is secure, and is stimulating and enjoyable for our children. We can't just take our children to the local playground. You've seen and heard many of our children are not mobile, and many of those that are have very, very challenging behavioural difficulties. I took my son to the local playground at Whetstone Park earlier this year, a few months ago. There were fisticuffs in the sand pit. He's only 8.5, but he's non-verbal, he has, as I say, very challenging behaviours, and he does not know how to respond around other children, whether those children have learning difficulties like he does, or whether they are normal mainstream children. Taking our children almost anywhere is fraught with dangers and difficulties. Furthermore, it is very difficult to maintain any kind of semblance of normal life with our children. When my son was born, he's 8.5 now, I was working 5 days a week for the BBC World Service, and I had a wonderful career. With the difficulties in the post, I went there for 4 days, and then 3 days, and then 2 days, and then inevitably 1 day. And much of the time, I don't even manage to do that. Books has been, along with the after school club, the only reason that I have managed to keep working and have some kind of income and make some kind of positive contribution to our society. Removing books, whether it's in coming months or coming years, in any way, would leave me hurling myself on the benefits of the merciful taxpayer, the cost of which is enormous. Cost of which is enormous. Housing benefit, unemployment benefit, carers allowance. It's not the way forward. I welcome the decision that you made to use this funding for the summer. I thank you, but I implore you to ensure that books receives funding going forward.
Thank you, Mr. White. That's much appreciated.
Thank you very much, Mr. White. That was a very poignant, very well spoken piece. We've received a report this evening in which the national picture, the national economic picture has been given to us. I have in my hands here a Children's Services Budget Proposal consultation in which they lay out the need for cuts to the Children's Services budget. Now, this all seems to be by way of justifying to residents that some amount of cuts are required and these types of services may be necessary to cut. Does that in any way justify to you cutting services of the form that Oakleigh receive or Maple Down?
Thank you for the question. No, it doesn't. I think it is incumbent upon council, it's incumbent upon any council to provide for the most vulnerable people in society. Our children are
Thanks, Mr. White. Any other comments? Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. White. The next speaker is Mr. Holden. I hope I pronounced
Holden.
Thank you. Mr. Holden, you probably heard me say before, you've got 3 minutes and you can get those with us on the left.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Chairman and council members. I'd like to echo also Mrs. Stackman and Mark's remarks. I represent one of the parents. I have a little boy who's on the autism spectrum with severe learning difficulties. And as you can see, all the parents that have turned up tonight, a lot of them bring their children with them. Now, normally these children is past their bedtime. You know, some of them are older, but they need a lot of sleep. Now, when you have children of special needs, it's very physically draining on the parent, carer, or grandparent. It's very emotionally draining. And to keep recharged and to keep energy to carry on day in, day out, to take care of somebody you truly love and you would die for. It's extremely difficult. Parents and carers go into depression. You know, because there's only so much you can do. Your sleep is affected. My son wakes up all hours of the day and night. And, you know, it's like having, if you can imagine, some of you who've got children, it's like going back to when you have a baby, and the baby needs feeding every 2 or 3 hours. That's what it's like. It says, this goes on and on and on for years. And, you know, these respite breaks, even if they are just 1 week or 10 days, that 1 week or 10 days is a pearl in the life of parents like these. It's just a pearl that it just gives you that chance to recharge properly. And, you know, I thank you very much for passing the motion that you passed tonight. I mean, that means a lot to us all. That really does, because it shows that, you know, you understand and you're thinking and trying to help. And I hope it continues. Now, Ms. Sackman, when she was giving her speech just now, forgot to refer to other fantastic organizations which have seen funding cut. also Resources for Autism, Camp Kept. These are also other brilliant organizations that take care of kids with special needs on this vast spectrum. The extreme end being very, very extreme. And, we just like to know, the council, what do you intend to do for the ongoing funding for these organizations? And that's what I have to say tonight.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alderman. Any members' questions for Mr. Alderman? Thank you very much, Mr. Alderman. The final speaker we have this evening is Charles. Charles, you've probably heard before, but you'll have 3 minutes to speak and you'll be given notice 1 minute before you finish.
Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to address the meeting. I have 2 children who have undiagnosed life-limiting conditions, global development delay, and mental issues. They're my grandchildren. They live with me, and I have parental responsibility for them because their mother is too ill to look after them. Precious, being the carer. I'm here to tell you what's involved in my day, and I'm afraid the time limit is just not going to allow it. So I'll just give you a little glimpse of what's included. Ben has 15 medications each morning. He's now 16 and in palliative care. And Sophie, who is 7 years old, has 7 medications. 3 of Ben's meds are for epilepsy, which has never been controlled. He's had times when he experienced up to 80 seizures a day, and better times when he's had between 3 and 4. They range in duration from 5 minutes to as little as an hour. For most of the day, some sort of activity. 2 medications of a severe, very severe, full body dystonic movement disorder. At its worst, Ben would thrash uncontrollably for up to 12 hours at a time. The pain involved is unendurable, mainly because Ben also has very severe scoliosis, a curvature of the spine, which creates neuropathic pain when nerves are stretched to their limit on one side of the spine and squashed and nipped on the other. After several weeks, we finally managed to find the right cocktail of drugs to help control the movement to a greater degree, and at the moment, Ben experiences short bouts of movement, thankfully, perhaps 3 or 4 times a day, lasting between 30 and 90 minutes, when they're triggered by several causes, sometimes by seizure, or by pain, or by difficulty in breathing. 6 medications for pain, 2 different types of morphine, slow and ketamine to help with neuropathic pain, and ibuprofen for temperature and to enhance the others. 2 remaining medications are antibiotics, because Ben has pseudomonas, a bacterial infection that colonises in the lungs of those with compromised respiratory systems. He's never without a chest infection, which creates difficulty because of his impaired swallowing. He requires suctioning of mucus and saliva because he's unable to swallow. And deep suction or oral suction. Oral suction is obviously self-explanatory. Deep suction is where we have to go deeper into his lungs to avoid a plug of mucus, which can be fatal if we don't get it out. I'm not going to, he doesn't walk or wait there, he doesn't speak. He lost that ability at the age of 8, and he needs to be hoisted for all transport of position. To lift him physically would be far too painful for him, and would be far too hazardous for the lifter. And what is Sophie? Well, although Sophie is still mobile at the age of 7, at the moment things are changing for her too. Her epilepsy is increasingly difficult to control, and her walking is deteriorating, and she's very, very wobbly. She already has her gastrostomy and is tube-fed in the same way that Ben is. In order for Ben to receive his nutrition, sufficient nutrition, he has to be on a food pump for 16 hours out of 24.
Thank you, Mr. Charles. I'm sure all the members would like to ask you would like to ask a question of Mr. Charles. Councillor Charles.
Would you be able to tell us about this?
Yes, exactly.
So she's not the vibrant, energetic little girl who loves to be tickled and bounced and would want you to sing to her all day long and spend most of her day smiling. She never had speech, but managed to communicate so very well by taking you by hand to what she wanted, which was usually cake and chocolates. She's much less able these days, and all indications are that she'll follow the same path as Ben, but in Sophie's case, things seem much, much more to help our children get their feelings of recognition of the world. They so deserve the opportunity, and it's the dedication and fantastic skill of those groups who embark upon a never-ending quest to help our children shine, even though for some it might only be for seconds. My children are the people in my world that I respect the most. They cope with the most enormous struggles without a moment of self-pity. They respond positively to every opportunity, even though those opportunities are short and seldom, and despite the fact that they're so very ill at times. I love my children more than you can understand, and I want to look after them at home until they die, which is inevitable. No one else can care for them as I do. I want them to have as much positivity and experience as they can. But then things are very sadly advanced. But with Sophie, she can still touch and feel and taste and smell and smile, and she deserves nothing less than what you can provide for her.
Ms. Charles, I don't want to interrupt you, but since question time, we're going to
Don't interrupt. How can you interrupt someone like that?
Any members to ask any questions, we need to have it happen in the next minute or two. So if we could have quiet in the gallery, I'm sure that Ms. Charles will show you.
I've experienced the world of human sensory care, so it's vital that he has as much sensory as possible to keep him part of the world, and to let him know that we love him dearly. He needs music and sensory lights and touch and stories and affection. His cognitive function is very low, but just occasionally, when he's having a good day, and when all the stars align, I can just get that glimmer of the Ben that once was. Just a minute, a minute eye contact or a squeeze of my finger or a moment that leans towards me. And these are the moments for which I would work unendingly and for which I would sell my soul. As a carer, it's tough. The heartbreak's too difficult to describe, but eventually we manage to put that somewhere safe to deal with at a later date. The daily care, the cleaning of equipment, oxygen masks, tubing, nebulizers, managing and replenishing the medication stocks, the changing of the gastrostomy bottle, the appointments and communication with various healthcare professionals, doctors, dietitians, physiotherapists, occupational physiotherapists, neurologists, bone specialists, the list goes on and on. We all have different experiences to deal with our children, and we are all completely individual, and our needs are all very specific. Disability is just one thing, and it can't be just put right with a ramp and a rail. We live 1 inch from the end of our terror, and we need to know that that inch is loose. They are trained in the medical, physical and social needs of our children, and there's nowhere else for our children to go. I'm usually quite a private person. I don't impart this information easily, and I tell you all of this not because I want something for myself or for my children. That's not the objective at all. I'm here to impart knowledge, because with knowledge comes understanding and responsibility. You need to be aware of the consequences of the decisions that you're making, and you need to be responsible for the welfare of the most vulnerable children and the most vulnerable members of our communities. There have been central government funding made for the provision of these children. I'm not going to quote the new carers bill here, though you're surely aware of it, and I'm not going to quote General Comment number 17, published by the United Nations Committee on the Rights of the Child. However, these documents exist, and you need to implement what you can to acknowledge them. I urge you to give our children the respect and dignity they deserve, and to make the decision to provide funding for the youth play scheme, not to overturn a decision on the pretext of an administrational error, but a decision on principle to continue to fund this play scheme, and understand it, since it's the only scheme that our children can access. says on the agenda, I must say that as a retired nurse and midwife, I understand everything all the speakers have said. I know what you're hearing, I know what you're going through. So let me tell you, I understand. I'm glad this evening that we saw saints and made this resolution. But I have to say, it should never come to this before. It should not have been turned down at council. I say because under the equalities, we should treat all schools and children equally. If it's austerity for the council, it's austerity for those parents too as well. They have less money than us. Teachers and staff, the stress for them and the parents is an understatement. As corporate parents, we should be acting as parents. We shouldn't have to let them come to tell us what it's all about. In our own minds, if it was our children or our child, we would know better and give them what we think they needed. Sometimes money is not always the first thing you think about. It is the quality and the kindness and the care for those parents, school and children, not money first. And why is it that we always hit the ones with the less money and the vulnerable one, and we forget those at the top? What is the matter with us that we cannot think right?
I would just remind members that we have passed a motion on the activity books, and obviously we know that the leader has brought in the extension of the Maple Down special short break service for the continuation of this year. I would draw members' attention to the fact that in our work programme going forward to the July meeting in a month's time, we're going to be addressing directly these issues. So I think in terms of a short update, that's probably been provided from what we've had at this meeting, and we've benefited from the members of the public and from yourself to be able to put that forward to move forward. So if you say that motion would be interesting, Mr. Slogan. Okay. Yes, I think we can move straight. That's something that we will then be able to have a fuller update on at the next meeting. Obviously, we've done a large piece of work here. Now, I would like to thank all of those members of the public, friends, families, and supporters who come here this evening. I'm sure that those young children may want to take this as an opportunity to move, so I think we'll take a pause for a minute so that people who want to leave at this stage have an opportunity to do so. Thank you.
We read the funding report, that's fine, that's good. I mean, we look at that again in the July meeting. But I just want to make sure that when we come back to the July meeting, we're going to look at this as a whole and not discuss this two.
Yes, yes. Did you want to say a few words?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, what we'll be bringing forward to this committee for your consideration is a commissioning strategy for our short break services as a whole for the budget that we have, which is £700,000 for short break provision to set out where we think that budget is best in consultation with local providers. To have a chance to consider it in July. We have rolled over contracts through until March 2015, and what the committee will need to do on the back of consideration of this commissioning approach is to set out the areas that they would like to see that money being used going forward from 2015 onwards.
Councillor Hubbard, this one short because I don't want people saying that they need to.
Just to clarify, because this didn't come under short breaks, it came under another, so I'd like us to look at the broader spectrum and not just, not just the short breaks.
I can give you assurance that we'll be looking at all of the short breaks provision, including those that were previously funded from the individual commission budget, which
Very briefly, Chair, if I may.
Councillor, we need to make this really short.
I understand that funding for short breaks comes via the government's early intervention grant. For the July meeting, would it be possible to get a full breakdown of that grant, where the funding goes to and how much of it is associated with short breaks?
We can set out the funding streams, yes.
Thank you, members, thank you, officers. So yes, if there are people who have young children here who would like to take this as an opportunity, thank you very much for coming this evening. We greatly appreciate you coming here. Just take a couple of minutes before we move on to the next.